much better things. Much like all of these MCU shows are basically that. They're leeches that have attached themselves to something that was once great. They're just trying to suck all the blood out that they can.
And they really feel the fucking need to just deconstruct the character in a way that pisses everyone off. It's just like, they ain't this anymore.
Aren't we clever, though? We deconstructed a character.
Well, maybe that's giving them too much credit. They didn't deconstruct Loki, they just fucking altered him.
Yeah, maybe that was the idea in their head.
Edit Loki. He's gone from a mass murderer in league with Thanos to a timey-wimey detective with good manners.
How do you say this without thinking like... How do you say that without being like, you know what, maybe this is stupid? He's describing...
Wait a second.
Is this episode 2?
Yeah.
Which is literally what?
Like
a day from when he's described as a mass murderer?
Yeah, the timeline's ultra unclear, honestly.
How do you say this as if it makes total sense? The arc was fucking rushed like crazy.
You wouldn't say this about Hitler!
But it works. This was a concerted effort to edit Loki. He's gone from a mass murderer in league with Thanos to a timey-wimey detective with good manners and a dorkable charm.
I won't touch Barton, not until I make him kill you.
Do you understand that if I was to construct a video explaining the difference and how they broke him, it would be very similar to what he's just done?
Oh,
I wouldn't be praising it after this. I would present these clips and be like, they fucked Loki.
Slowly, in every way he knows you fear. And then...
Nice to see you. I just need this for a second.
Okay, so I understand that the gist of what they're saying is that Loki is not making a whole lot of sense. Now, the question is, why do they say these things? And presumably, because the way this character was constructed, he was terrifying, and now he's not terrifying. I don't think that follows. I think if you looked at Avengers carefully as well as Thor, I always thought of Loki as kind of a bumbling clown. Now, if Mahler's impressed by some spooky music and Tom Hiddleston banging the door and the sound effects, that's him. I think Joss Whedon, who is a good writer, we're going to table the controversies over Joss Whedon just for today. I do think he's a good writer and good director, and I think given the constraints that were put on him, he did the best he could with Avengers. But I think basically the crisis was kind of manufactured, and Loki is a bumbling clown. He may be a dangerous clown, but he's still basically a clown. Now, if you're offended by Loki making him more of a clown, well, that's you, and maybe the character development is rushed. But it's not a radical transformation. He was always a kind of bumbling idiot who was very destructive. They're just speeding that up with the Mobius friendship, and that's my take on that. But we'll do more on Loki, although they didn't really do much substantive commentary. And I find it astonishing that Jay Alexi just completely admitted that, yeah, on the EFAP, we comment on content and we don't even watch it. That's shocking, but we'll do more on that later. Now let's get to Mahler's analyses of characters in general. And I may be getting a little repetitive, but this is important because this is really astonishing when we think it through. And he's talking about Loki, but as we think about it, like, whoa, wait a minute, you've basically shown that most of your content is completely moronic and idiotic. So let's hear him speak carefully, and then I'll go methodically through it.
You know, like the moving the hands and all the body contortions as he walks around.
Like there is sort of the enthusiasm he has there. It's sort
in
of
that moment,
role,
but it's still something that didn't even like.
I haven't seen the show.
Oh no, but I'd still roll back to the whole like it's not Loki at all. So like the moments you pick out as being like, see, this is kind of like Doctor Who. I'd be like, yeah, it's not like Loki. Like it's weird.
Well, I feel like, well, is that even necessary to the argument that this is good Doctor Who?
Is it necessary to the argument that it's good Doctor Who?
The point here was
I feel like you could make the argument if they wrote Loki to just be the Doctor in this show, and you could make the argument, yeah, it's fucking weird that they did this to Loki, but it would be good if they did this with the Doctor. But
if they wrote the Doctor to be like the Doctor.
If they had, well, that'd be great, wouldn't it? If you have a Loki that is out of Loki's character and he's doing all kinds of crazy things all the time, and I pluck out pieces and go, see, this is kind of like Darth Maul, and you're like, okay. And then I go, but also these parts, they're kind of like Jack Sparrow, and you're like, I don't know, why are we doing
Loki
this?
feels like half the man he used to be, so he's like Darth Maul.
He just, he just feels like a fucking nonsense jumble because they've got goals with the plot, not with him.
Great one, 50,000 more worlds.
Wait, what? 50,000 planets? How the fuck is he gonna do that? What? The villains in this film have been proven to be retarded already from everything they forget.
He's saying that oh, they took little bits and pieces of this, they took little bits and pieces of that, they jumbled it all together, and it don't make no sense. Now, let's think through what he's trying to do with the Rampage. He's telling us that Zack Snyder is not a very good writer. He's not a very good director. And he goes through case study and scene and scene. And yet it occurs to me he did another video essay where with Infinity War, he gave that unbridled praise. And one of the things that got a lot of praise was Thanos. Like over and over again, he kept saying, Thanos is so well written. Thanos is so logical. Thanos is the culmination of the MCU writing. Well, here's another thing that Thanos is. He's Darkseid. Or rather, let's go through this carefully. Thanos literally is Darkseid. If you go through the comic book origins, Jim Starlin has admitted this. He created Thanos. And he created Thanos by stealing Darkseid, who was created by Jack Kirby over at DC Comics. And just to add a little more things, Meme Depository, who allegedly knows the DC Comics, was helping him with the Rampage videos. So maybe this is more his error than Mahler's, but we'll see. If you understood Thanos, you would understand this is basically Darkseid. Yet somehow, and I'm not sure how he does this, because I don't consider the movie Thanos to be Thanos. He's basically, the way I would see it is this. Thanos in the comics is basically just a ripoff of Darkseid in the comics. But Jim Starlin did add a few things. Not that much. He really stole it wholesale, but he added a few critical touches. So we have Darkseid, right? And Thanos is a dumbed down version of Darkseid. And now we get to the movies, and what is that? Well, that goop, who I don't want to call Thanos, it's just a purple raisin. And Purple Raisin is a dumbed down version of Thanos from the comics, who is himself a dumbed down version of Darkseid. So Mahler watches the Snyder Cut, and he's able to conclude that Darkseid doesn't make a whole lot of sense in Justice League, but Thanos makes perfect sense in Infinity War. Now, the obvious problem with that would be that's not possible. In fact, that's a logical impossibility because I just noted Darkseid is Thanos and Thanos is Darkseid. But it gets even worse because Darkseid is basically a very intelligent character. So even the comic book version of Thanos is a dumbed down version of that. So basically, Darkseid is highly intelligent, Thanos in the comics is moderately intelligent, and the purple goop is barely intelligent. But under Mahler's estimation, the movie Thanos, Purple Raisin, is brilliant, but Zack Snyder's version of Darkseid is stupid. And apparently he doesn't recognize that they're the same character. And in that commentary, he's like, I don't understand this. I don't understand this. You took little bits and pieces of this, and you took little pieces of that, and you made a jumble. And he's saying that about Loki. So Loki is a jumble and a bad character. And from the praise video, Thanos is a good character. But Darkseid is a really bad character, right? But then you're like, that's impossible. That's literally a logical impossibility. You're saying the dumbed down version, the Purple Raisin, right? The bad, stupid version of Thanos, that's brilliant. But the original prototype, the actual original prototype, because the Snyder version is very faithful to the comics. So we're getting basically a lot of Darkseid. It is a cameo, right? I don't want to distort it, but we get enough that is Darkseid. That is the essential core of Darkseid that you're going to get in the comics. Visually, he looks a little off, but that is Darkseid. You're able to say with a straight face, no, this Thanos of the MCU is brilliant. He's incredible. And you're puzzled. How do you take little bits and pieces of this and little pieces of that and create a jumble? You just said it. That's Thanos in the MCU. He's jumbled from the comic book Thanos and the comic book Darkseid. And when Zack Snyder gave you a faithful version of Darkseid, well, several things happened. You didn't even recognize that's Thanos, and that's a better version of Thanos, because that's what Thanos is based on in the comics. And even in the film, that is what Thanos is based on. He's still based on Darkseid. That's what they did. They still took Darkseid, because as I said, basically, Thanos in the comics is virtually entirely stolen from Darkseid. They're almost the same thing. So when you're saying a dumbed down version of Darkseid, right, Thanos in the MCU is intelligent, first, that's logically impossible. But then secondly, you're telling us the good version of Darkseid, the really intelligent version, is stupid. It's like you've committed two logical contradictions. And not only are you maintaining both logical contradictions, you're literally asking us, I don't understand how this works. You took little bits and pieces of this character, and you took bits and pieces of that character. How do you do that? Did you not make a whole video praising Thanos of the MCU? that's how they made Thanos. I'm just flabbergasted at your sheer stupidity. I'm like, how retarded could you possibly be? It's like you literally could not recognize identical characters. And this isn't even speculation. Jim Starlin has admitted this. Darkseid is the basis of Thanos. Thanos is a dumbed down version of Darkseid in the Marvel Comics. The movie Thanos, the Purple Raisin, is a more dumbed down version. They basically took Darkseid and Thanos and gave him super retardation pills and made him super stupid. And you think it's one of the most brilliant creations of all time. So several things can be concluded. A, you don't know anything about characters. B, you don't know anything about Marvel Comics. C, you don't know anything about the MCU, and you're really insanely lazy and self-contradictory and hypocritical because you're saying, it's okay, J. Alexi. I don't think you need to understand the content to even make judgments about it. You don't need to watch anything. So you're a bunch of lazy, hypocritical, stupid thieves, and you can't even recognize identical characters, even when they visually look the same, even thematically the same. They're basically virtually identical characters. And you're saying one version of the character is really brilliant, and the more faithful version of that same character is really stupid. How is that logically possible? I'd really like to know the answer, because it's like, it's not even a little small piece of stupidity. Like, this is literally cosmically stupid. Off the wall, nutsoid stupid, even for you. I'm like, how did you just say these things? They're conceptually, logically, and empirically beyond stupid. But that's the Mauler and the EFAP for you. What can I say? Thanks for listening.